Well, hello everyone. This is a new kind of view today. Actually, you guys know what I look like, but I have two wonderful guests here today. Welcome to Real Talk with E.V.E. And it is going to be a special day for you guys. Some lunch and learn. So you need to go get a pen and paper because we're going to talk about some things that most families are not aware or don't sit down and talk about it. So we're going to talk about a walk. What was it?
A walk with autism.
A walk within the life with autism, right?
Autism, yes.
Yeah, and so I appreciate that these beautiful guests are here today because we need to learn from each other. And I have learned so much thanks to Elena Luna Magallanes. And of course, we have her awesome, handsome son,
Hey everyone.
Antonio Leon Magallanes. And we call him Toño. Is it okay? Is it
Yeah.
okay I call you Toño?
Or Buddy. People call me my nickname, Buddy.
Buddy? But can I call you Buddy?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So you may hear some music in the background. Of course, you guys know I'm a believer. We're all believers.
Yes.
Just like the monkey said, I'm a believer. Yes, I am.
Yes,
we are
yes.
believers. And so we have some worship music in the background. So just to keep the atmosphere in the way that it needs to be. Well, we're here to talk about autism. What is it like to be in that life? We have Toño. And what is it like to have a child that has autism? We have Elena. She can tell you, been there, done that, in it as we speak. Many times, as an advocate, our work never ends. We're there, we're present, we're in the moment. When a parent doesn't realize that their child, there's something different about them, they're getting into trouble, they don't get diagnosed. First of all, our Hispanics, non-English speaking families don't even know what autism is, right? May not even know what it looks like to even know to question about it, right? So I have an awesome advocate here to my left, you're right, that knows what it is all about. And she's been a big advocate for a long time. So I'm going to stop it right here. And I'm going to ask a little bit ask you who you are and where you're from. And same thing with you, Tonya. Okay, is that good?
Sure.
Okay. Well, welcome to Real Talk with E.V.E.
Thank you so much, Eve. I really appreciate the invitation to come and just share a little bit about our journey, because it is just a piece of the journey, right? I am Elena Luna Magallanes. I reside here in Northwest Indiana, and I've been in Northwest Indiana for a little over 20 years. Grew up in Whiting, and I'm now within the same area, not too far. Antonio has been in the school system for, oh my gosh, graduated when he was 18 with a diploma.
Right.
Yay, snap, snap, snap. Despite being told that he was not going to. And he's really been able to live his own version of independence. A lot of bumps along the way, aside from getting the diagnosis and being able to really just understand that the world around us is different, right? And we're just going to look at it a different way. Doesn't mean you can't accomplish the same things that your peers are accomplishing it. We just got to do it a different way, which means we have to parent a different way, right? And so we build our own village a different way, but the village is still there, right? Mm-hmm. So a lot of bumps along the way, but a lot of positives.
I'm sure.
Yeah, a lot of positives along the way as well.
So with that, let me take you back.
Sure.
When Tonya was a child, how was he? What kind
he
of child
was
he?
A little stickler.
Stickler.
Yep.
He has, right off the get-go, he's always been giving us a run for our money. He was born at 26 weeks gestation, so a little early. Despite the odds at that time, he was able to survive, made it past the first week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, couple months. By the time he was 4 months old, he was home out of the hospital. Didn't really have any sort of developmental disability. A lot of the medical issues we kind of phased out as he kind of grew. Went into preschool, went to regular kindergarten, regular public school, all good, regular things. But we kind of figured in second grade, it was like, all right, something's not clicking. Second grade teacher was like, he's keeping it together, he's doing okay, but something is just different. Let's get him tested, right? Let's get him tested. So he was able to go ahead and and really shine once the diagnosis kind of came. Not because we lived up to the label, but because we were able to put some interventions in place. And once those interventions were kind of in place, he kind of started thriving. And for a couple years, come like maybe fourth, fifth grade, we actually stopped intervention services because he had kind of made all of his goals and reached all of his target um, mile markers, so to speak. So all good things. But then middle school hit, and we were just in for a whole whirlwind.
Roller coaster.
Roller coaster.
Yes, yes, middle school and high school. And those who know us in the community, God bless you guys for working with us and being able to be patient with us as we kind of learned and figured things out together. So I think it was definitely a village that kind of helped us put together the plan for Antonio. You know, there was a dark time for sure.
Yeah.
A time where, as a parent, I felt helpless without really knowing who to go to. We weren't seeing the results within the school system. We weren't seeing results with our providers. We were just like, what is going on? Who do we call? Who do we talk to? Um, you know, and so we were able to really kind of figure things out in regards to how we put together that team dynamic. Um, and so it made it so that I really did learn that the functionality of a team was going to make or break his environment, right? And once we figured that out in the school setting, we were able to really ensure that that was done in the home setting as well.
So, who helped you realize that he had autism? How did that come about? Because we're talking to families that currently may have a child like Toño and not know about it, but they're all frustrated. They're flustered and they're aggravated and they're, in some cases, could be reprimanding the child.
Yeah, we totally thought it was a discipline issue. Like
Yeah.
we totally thought it was a discipline issue. He wasn't following our directions. If we told him to clean his room, he would just go in there. And mind you, this was before, not now. You know, he was having a hard time following more than one step directions. Whenever we would have conversations, even though he was verbal and can talk with us, his understanding of what we would say was just not what it was intended to be, right? And so he would have meltdowns and start throwing, for lack of a better word, a meltdown, right? And it would give the impression that it was a tantrum, but it was genuinely a meltdown. And us Latinos were like, oh, ¿dónde está el fajo?
Right.
Right?
Está la chancla.
Right, right. And so we had our parents, grandparents. Oh, you guys need to be stricter parents. We need
gosh.
You know, you need to show your authority. And the reality was that there was literally a neurological, out of his control thing going on with him that really just kind of, as a parent, made us go through some grieving process because we're like, Lord,
so you're getting all this background noise, and I don't want to say it disrespectfully, but when I say noise as in being negative, saying it's one thing when it totally was not. Once you found out. But how did you find out? You know, how did you?
We actually went through the school. So
okay.
The second grade teacher went ahead and told us, you know, let's start the process. Let's just get him tested, and we'll just kind of see what comes up. And so the school went ahead and did their own testing. At the same time, though, we also talked to our pediatrician. And so they kind of guided us through the medical diagnosis component of it. Even though he went through, because he was born early, we did first steps, we did those early interventions, and he had developmental therapy and physical therapy and occupational therapy. He didn't have the autism diagnosis at that time. It was mainly because he was born 26 weeks and we were trying to be preventative, right? We wanted to prevent any sort of cognitive or physical delay because he was born early. So he actually didn't get his diagnosis of autism until he was in middle school.
Wow. So all those years, not really knowing.
Yep.
Although you were doing things, right? to be safe and
Yeah.
get him some type of services.
Mhm.
And so middle school.
Well, we started with the oppositional defiant disorder. We started with ADHD as well. And so all of those carried labels, right? Because all of those were more along the lines of mental health kind of things, right? And so when it came time to getting interventions in place in the school with IEPs, then it was like, okay, it's a social emotional disability as opposed to, a neurological learning component. So I myself have a paralegal background and a degree, so that research ability really kind of came in handy with Antonio. It really came in handy. So once we were in middle school, it was really just trying to figure out what fires to put out and really trying to convince the school that we were part of the same team instead of us against them, which still continues to be the fight.
Happens.
It still continues to be the fight.
So
yeah.
With that, it sounds like it's been a challenging moment, but now fast forward, he's in a better place, and so are you as a parent, right?
Yeah. We continue to walk the journey, just like Antonio said, right? Walk in a day in the life, because every day it is a little different, right? The milestones, he's entitled to the same type of lifestyle that his peers are, right? We have a daughter who's just 11 months younger than him, and so she went off to college and did her live-in with her college friends in the dorm in her own place, and Antonio now has his apartment and
Nice.
also was able to kind of get a
Moving
job on a part-time basis, and we still struggle with those day-to-day things, and it looks a little different for him, right? But it's still his own version of independence, right? It's not always happy, right?
Well, just like with anyone, we all have our moments, right?
Yeah.
We all go through our moments. It's
Yeah.
not like we're gonna have you say, well, you stick out like a sore thumb, and here we are. We're not having any of those meltdown moments. We all have those moments,
we all
right?
have those emotions.
But the support system is so important, is it not?
Yeah, we had to have not just our family be the support system, but we also had to learn to go outside of our family, right? And that's really hard for us, especially because once we start getting into inappropriate behaviors in the classroom or in public, then it's just instinctively, let's pull away, right? Let's pull back, let's isolate to try to minimize any potential damage, right? And so it is counterintuitive to be able to say, okay, let me reach out, let me figure out what resources are available, because our insurance wasn't covering what it needed to cover.
Wow.
I couldn't hold a full-time job because I needed to be on backup duty, right? If we were having stuff going on at school. And so
you had to be always available, pretty much, right?
Yeah. It definitely changed our life tremendously. But looking at those resources, those must-have resources were crucial to be able to be where Antonio is now.
And so, and how we met was being the advocate that you have been for many, many years.
Yeah.
Was it because you had a child that had autism, and I say all because it's your family, your daughters, your children, your husband, family, all going through this together, that made you become an advocate, or how did that happen?
I think the frustration of feeling helpless was the driving factor, and realizing that he is not the only one.
Right.
We are not the only family.
Right.
And embracing that journey was like, okay, well, this is going to be like the manual for someone else, the starting point. Yeah. There's no reason to reinvent the wheel. There is no reason for that.
That's wonderful. And I commend you for that, because that is what I think why we are still advocating, because you and I have seen what happens out in the community, mainly with our people, with our Spanish-speaking community. where they're not treated the same. And I'm just going to keep it real, hence the name, Real Talk with E.V.E.
Yeah, very much so.
They get a different type of treatment. They're not bringing the awareness to them as we bring the awareness to them about things in Espanol, in the language that they understand, and telling them where to get these resources, where they can find them. Now, it took you to live through it to know where they're at.
Yes.
To know where to look.
Yes.
Right?
Yes. I credit so many other advocates to be able to do that, because the reality is that it didn't matter if I went to my doctor, it didn't matter if I went to the teacher. Their resources, even though they walked this journey in their own way, only played a small part in how functional things were in our home and how functional things were in his day-to-day life, right? And so that team, that village mindset was hard to embrace, knowing that the other members didn't embrace that, right? And so people of color we are always at a disadvantage. Always at a disadvantage. And Northwest Indiana, considering that we are the second largest county in the state, has 10 times less resources than Marion County, right? And so it's just mind-boggling.
Well, not just as advocates, but as people that can bring awareness in the platform such as this one. It's to bring the necessary resources. You just mentioned Marion has more than we do here. Well, there's something wrong with that picture, folks. Are we talking to you, legislators? Are we talking to you, lawmakers? Are we talking to you, policy changers, policy makers? I hope you get this message, right? And so now let's switch it over. Tonio, what's it like to have this autism? I'm not labeling you, but we're talking about autism. What's your walk look like?
It's a little different. Not gonna say it's all joy and happiness. There are different outcomes, different rules, different reasons. The way I solidify myself and isolate reasons for some reasons for me being isolated is for when parents don't understand the autism, they take it as, oh, my kid's gonna overreact on something. I'm just gonna put him and isolate him from the rest of the group and not acknowledge that he's there. And then they get aggravated so much and they're like, oh, you don't care about me, you're worried about the whole rest of the family, you're not gonna bother with me anymore, and you're just gonna forget I'm a part of the family. And they get so aggravated, they throw a fit, and then the parents like, oh, you're gonna throw a fit, and you're gonna do this, that, whatever to get my attention. And then the parents like, you know, I'm just gonna send you to a mental hospital, see if you can get checked in, see if that'll work.
Did those thoughts cross your mind?
They do sometimes, and sometimes I wish parents would understand that autism is not always it's not a disease. Parents sometimes treat it like it's a disease, and it's not. It's not a way to just say, hey, my kid's gonna be like this, and I'll forget about it. You know, it's not like a toy you can pick up and roll around for a little bit, throw it around a lot, and pick it or put it down when you're done, and then pick it up again later when you're angry. You know, it's not like a drink you can have in your hand and say, hey, I'm gonna drink this, and put it down later and come back for it later. You know, some parents do that, and they see it as this escape. They see it as this more of, I'm gonna absorb all my negativity into this kid and put all my positive energy into the rest of the family.
I think I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
I think that what the beauty that we've discovered is that we've been able to learn from each other, right? So what we as parents, young parents, were like, oh my gosh, Antonio's having a fit. He's throwing a tantrum. Let's scoop him up and pull him away from his cousins, pull him away from his sisters, without realizing that it was a sensory overload, right? there was too much noise going on. There was something that was probably touching him that he didn't like how it was feeling. And so it was causing that behavior in him. And we misinterpreted that as negative behavior without realizing that it was autism. It was a part of the autism, right?
Something that you could not control,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So those that are watching, this is about a walk in a life of autism with Toño. Toño's going to come back again, and so are you, because of course this show is only for 30 minutes, and we're going to have to do a next one for an hour because there's so much to learn from each of them as a parent, as an advocate, and as a child, a young adult with autism. Now, you may have heard how he just expressed himself and said, there's nothing wrong with Toño. There's nothing wrong with Antonio. What are you talking about? He's autistic, right?
That's because autism isn't wrong, right? It's just a different way of learning, a different way of seeing the world. Communication is impaired, socialization is impaired. That doesn't mean that it's impaired equally all across the board with everyone. So
Well,
he's just
really
Toño.
impaired.
He's
It's not
just
really
Toño.
impaired. It's not really impaired. It's more of we put it into a different translation as parents would like to put it. Parents more as in they summarize as what we put out in a more of into paragraphs.
Okay, so what is it like when you're having a moment, or as we have been calling it, a meltdown? If you recognized it.
I do recognize it.
Okay.
The way you can see your kid having a reaction or seeing them as if they have a meltdown for young parents or soon to be parents. If you do have kids that are young and autistic, for either boys or girls or young adult teens, I suggest you look at their hands or legs. If they have hands, if they're tapping, if their legs are shaking, if they start tapping their legs or their legs start shaking, or see some signs like if they're isolating themselves too much, if they say, hey, if they give like a small little attitude to say, hey, I want to be left alone for a while, I'm going to go to my room for an hour or two, let them be alone at least for 30 minutes.
So is
For
that
them to cool,
you?
yeah, let them have their 30 minutes to cool down, and then they'll come back out and ask you, can I have some help? That's when you step in.
Yeah. I think what we've noticed with Antonio is he had physical signs of that emotional overload, right? That sensory overload. He would tap his hands, he would, wail his hands, he would shake his feet. And so instinctively, as we were like, oh, stop.
Calmate.
Calmate, right? Like,
Chill.
your peace, right? And he literally couldn't. And he literally couldn't.
Right,
And by him going to his room, he was actually, and all this we of course learned after the fact, he was just removing all of the sensory, the sensory processing stuff that was going on around him. Go into his room, shut off the lights, all of his senses were being re-regulated, right?
Right.
So
And I think it's, I won't say it's worse, I would just say it's more challenging for those that have a different spectrum that are nonverbal.
Yes.
I have a niece that's nonverbal. She does say a few things, and then she goes on to that conversation, and I don't know what she's saying now.
Right.
Mom understands because she's
With
around her, she's with her, and I believe you also encountered them.
We did.
And thank you for what you've done for them as well, and for many other families that don't know where to turn. And so, as an advocate, I have met these families, but as an interpreter. And then that lets me know they don't know where else to go. They're here because now they're into seeing if their child is qualified for Social Security, for disability. Not knowing where else to go because they cannot, the psychologist, the therapist, they cannot tell you where to go. They're just there to do the evaluation.
Right.
And that's sad. There should be material everywhere. Maybe they can't personally tell them, but there should be material in English and Spanish or whatever language that there is for them to at least, let me take a look at this. Oh, they don't have to tell me, but I have it right here.
Yeah, the Bureau of Developmental Disabilities is the office you want to get that process going.
Yeah, I was just going to ask, where's it
either.
that they go?
It's not just that either. It's mostly when you go to a therapist or when you go to someone for help as an adult for help, like a doctor,
Mhm, mhm.
you have to know who you're going to. You also have to know their background and know who to
Yeah.
trust. For young adults, I admire you young adults. Go to your parents, ask them for help mostly because they're the ones who will support you the best.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it's for everyone. I'm not saying it's for all parents to just help your kids, but I'm saying do it for your kids because they need that guidance.
Yeah.
They need that support. They need that help because no one else is there for them. And I'm saying it for all parents right now. There's a hard life for young adults now to learn because there are a lot of children that are on the spectrum now more than ever. And we need parents and young adults to come together to build a village for these kids and
Yeah.
young children.
Their
Amen.
CDC just came out with their numbers last month, Antonio, and it's
Mhm.
1 in 36.
Hear that, people? 1 in
1 in
36.
1 in 36
One in
people
every
are getting
36.
diagnosed with autism, right? So that in a classroom that has 35 or 40 kids in a classroom, you're looking at least one kid in every classroom.
At least one or
Um,
two people.
Yeah. So that means the people
Wow.
that you were sitting with in church.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah.
We're
Even as
not-
adults,
we're
they may
gonna
be
be
on the
there.
spectrum and not know.
Yes,
They've
they're
never
gonna
been
be there.
diagnosed.
They're gonna be
They're
there.
gonna be there. So, in hearing this, folks, I hope that you are looking at the world differently, your environment, the people that sit around you. Don't judge the child that's misbehaving, and the parent may be scolding them because the parent may not even know what's happening to their child. I have seen where the children are around a lot of noise and they can't handle that noise.
Mhm.
It's different in their brain how that sounds. Am I
Mhm.
right? I mean,
It's-
I'm not one to have it, but I've seen it.
Also, for parents, for kids with sounds who are nonverbal, I know some nonverbal kids in my family and young children. For nonverbal, see some signs if they're tapping, get them like a small little drum set or get
Or
them
even
some
like,
toy blocks.
Biting
Or
is a form of
biting too,
communication.
yes. Get them some like
Pinching.
pinching too. They get them like some little Lego blocks or get them those like giant Lego set blocks, those Playmobil ones that you put together or stack together. I know a lot of young little toddler kids that like to play with those chewable Play-Doh blocks that they like to put in their mouths. They're like made of rubber, like you get like for babies when they teeth, and they like to feel that rough rubber on their hands.
So they have there's a
Yeah.
sensory.
It's a
Sensory,
It's a
yeah.
tactile.
Yeah,
Right,
the tactile for sensory.
And some actually their sensory as far as their taste buds.
Yes.
That too.
They
yeah.
don't eat just anything.
They don't
Their
need anything.
texture.
The
is
texture
huge.
of
The
it.
oral fixation too.
Yeah.
Straws too. Get rubber straws or not ball caps. No, ball caps will ruin your kid's teeth. Do not listen to that. Ball caps will ruin your kid's teeth. Do not do that, parents. Do not do that. That's
We
wrong. It's
speak
no
from
no.
experience.
I will speak from experience. I have broken at least 8 teeth.
Oh my God! Wait, what were you chewing on?
Bottle caps.
Oh, that's what she's saying that
Mm-hmm.
to make fun.
Yep.
But you know what?
We live and learn.
When we're at a clinic, I've
Yeah.
seen parents, including myself, how we're looking at a child that's biting
Oh yeah.
a parent,
Oh trust me, she's known.
and we're not thinking,
like they're like.
well, there's probably an issue with them.
Yeah.
Instead, what a misbehaved child.
Yeah, sometimes.
Wow, their
Yeah.
mother needs to spank the mess out of
Well,
them.
no, I don't even think about hitting kids. I don't like hitting kids.
But I'm saying, as
Yeah.
the people
No,
that are
like
there
But
in
the
a
parents,
clinic
yeah.
or in a
Yeah.
store throwing a tantrum, and all we can do as a parent is all we know is let me discipline them, not realizing that it could be even way more. As you're hearing
Yeah.
here from a mom,
Mhm.
from a child point of view, and you're not hearing it from me.
Yeah.
You're hearing it from the ones that are walking it, that have lived it. And I always say God allows us to go through things to help someone else.
Yeah.
And I thank you for being so resourceful and knowing where a parent can go because you've been there, done that. Right?
Also,
Thank
parents,
you.
froyo and ice cream.
Is that your favorite?
Yeah, either or.
Now I know. Next time, come earlier and we'll go have some froyo, right?
Lime ice cream and lemonade
Oh,
ice
that's your
cream.
favorite.
When we're talking about taste buds, yes.
Yeah,
Like the
especially the
taste
texture.
for nonverbals.
Yeah, the
Little ones
texture.
for toddlers.
Even
They-
for me, I
Well-
like paletas too. Don't get me
No,
wrong.
not paletas. I mean like the scoop ice cream.
Free advertising.
Mhm.
We'll bring in
Cold
Froyo, Cold Stone.
Sponsor, sponsor,
Sponsor.
sponsor.
That's right. Sponsor this show. Anything else that you'd like to tell a parent about autism, no matter the spectrum?
It's still your child.
And how about the teachers? Although that's a whole nother show. That's a whole nother show.
That one kind of hit me a little harder, only because there's just so much I think that a teacher is navigating within the classroom. And even though this is my one child, they have 30 plus children in their classroom, right?
God bless them.
And if it's a special ed classroom, they've got 30
Ooh.
IEPs. They got they've got, a range of different things kind of overseeing and managing. I think the biggest words I guess I can say to the teachers is, this is an individual that you need to still see.
It's a human being.
It's a human being. This is
Yeah.
still
Yeah.
my Toño. And despite the testing that you've got to do, despite the accommodations we're probably fighting for, like, the reality is that he has the right to have quality of life.
Oh, and despite the gender too.
That's
Exactly.
right.
Gender equality, people.
Exactly.
So that's still Toño, right? So that's my biggest words for, I guess, the teachers. Understanding where they're coming from and knowing that it is going to take their perspective to get him to be successful. It's going to take my perspective to help make him successful. It's also going to take admin to be at that table and be successful. We all stay in our lane, but we all work together for the greater good.
Yeah, as you all should, as we all should. It does take a village to raise a child. I cannot stress it enough. It does. So if you're an educator, welcome the outside organizations, resources to come in to your facility to help aid what you can't understand, what you can't help in. And sometimes I know it gets frustrating. You want to pull your hair. You want to curse these kids out. Remember, they're just children. They're innocent. They don't know what's happening. And we're going to come back and talk about something you mentioned, which is so important, IEPs. You'd be surprised how much you don't know about IEPs to open your eyes, especially coming on from a parent standpoint. And it's so important. And now, what would you tell another child that says, hey, I can relate to you? What advice would you give?
Another person that would relate to me, I would say, be patient with your gifts. Don't abuse them. Don't folly from your path.
That is awesome.
I would say, keep going with the path you have. Do not distract yourself with anything. Keep an eye on your work. Keep an eye on your grades. Not let any wrongdoings come your way. Keep praying. Keep going forth with what your parents have for you. Keep honoring your mother and father. Keep honoring what your siblings, what you mean to them. Keep doing your work. Keep doing your homework, and be the better of what you can be. And also, you know what? Be the impossible. Be
I
the
like
impossible.
that. Because also, well, it's impossible. The same word, impossible. You're letting them know impossible. Wow, that's beautiful. Well, time is already gone and flown, and so we're going to bring them back again. I hope that you guys have taken several nuggets. I've taken some myself, and just especially hearing it from Toño, from his point of view and how he sees things from his world. It's not the same world as mine or his mom's, but you know what? Together we can make it one world and make it better for our kids that have autism. With that, guys, we got to go. We got places to go, people to see, and things to do. Thank you so much, Elena, Toño, for coming on Real Talk with E.V.E. We appreciate you, and I love you. I love you. Peace to you guys.
Bye,
Till next
guys.
time.